while we're waiting for John, I thought we could do a really quick little like a pre-credits action sequence with Phil. Phil, Moonraker.
Yes.
Did you see it?
Yes, I did.
And what was the verdict? What was your rating, first of all?
2.
What? Should I tell you what we scored it? I'll tell you what.
How did you score it?
Because you probably haven't listened to the Moonraker episode yet.
Not yet, no.
So we were pleasantly surprised, all of us. Let me just move this so I can keep an eye for John entering the room.
Is this because you're really, really into Star Wars?
It's got nothing to do with Star Wars.
Okay.
It's to do with the fact that it held our attention and it was very entertaining all the way through.
Yes.
The special effects, by and large, held up. And yeah, it was surprisingly entertaining. I did not reach for my phone once. I was just engaged through the whole thing. So I gave it a 9 out of 10, putting it and then I had to give From Russia with Love. I had to move that to a 9.5 because that's still my favorite. John, I'm just going to put your 2 in there, actually. So Moonraker.
Have you got the spreadsheet? Can you share?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Because I'm not as organised as you when it comes to this, so I'll just make it up as we go.
Alex gave it a 9 as well.
It was good.
Alex gave it a 9, so that puts it at Alex's.
It was my top one, I think.
Yeah. Oh, actually, do you know what? I've copied and pasted for Alex and Phil because I haven't actually got your other ratings in there yet. So I need to go back. I need to go back and find out what they were. But yeah,
I have to re-listen.
Okay, so Alex gave it a 9. So that, as he just said, that puts it as number 1. Yeah. And John has given it a 10.
Right.
So, and that makes it John's favourite Bond film so far.
I think he romanticized about the fact that Jaws got his girl, and that must have kind of pulled it up or something, because the film was terrible. The dialogue, everything about it was awful. I just could not enjoy it. I just can't. No, terrible. They went to Venice, and it was just, and then that whole double take of the pigeon. I'm sorry, hated it.
Oh, it was very entertaining.
Up my distaste for the film. To be fair, though, this one is much better.
Oh yeah, this is so much worse.
Yeah. Okay, can we not give anything away? Because I
won't give anything away. But really, yeah.
So, John, you missed Phil's short review of Moonraker. He's given it a 2.
Oh God!
He said it's atrocious.
I love Moonraker.
It's the worst one I've seen so far.
Oh dear, that's not good, is it?
Right, shall we get to it then?
Yeah.
He has important connections. You cannot just arrest him. You may have to kill him.
British Secret Service. License to kill or be killed.
Before setting out on revenge, you first dig 2 graves.
I didn't think it would end like this.
We're not there, James.
Bond. James Bond.
women like Electra always avenged their loved ones.
Welcome to the Tailoring Talk show with your host, Roberto Revilla. I'm a bespoke tailor, menswear designer, and founder of Roberto Revilla London Suit and Shirt Makers. This is the podcast where you drop in for the threads, but almost always leave with something unexpected. If you haven't already, please support the show by subscribing and leaving us a rating and review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It's time for part 12 of the Tailoring Talk James Bondathon, where we follow the James Bond film series in order, ticking off each movie as each month goes by. My guests and I deep dive into each film, covering everything from our overall review to the plot, clothes, gadgets, cast, behind-the-scenes stories, and our favourite moments. Step back into the Tailoring Talk time machine as we head to 1981, following the huge success of the fantastical sci-fi extravaganza that was Moonraker. The 007 production team decided to dial it back for The Spy Who Loved Me. Confession. I went into Moonraker not that enthusiastic, and those of you that listened to the last Bondathon episode will know that John, Alex, and I rated it extremely highly, and it's one of our favourite Bond movies today, if we pretend that we have not seen anything past 1981. This could be a very short Bondathon this week, and as a result, I couldn't even think of Spy Who Loved Me puns for... No, what? Sorry, what film was it? For Your Eyes Only puns. For Your Eyes Only. Everybody has to do one. That was the most exciting bit. Yes, he's been here from the beginning. We missed him for Moonraker. We now know from the pre-title sequence why, because he hated it. But I'm really glad to have him back. It's our poker-playing world superstar, the Shifra's nemesis, Philip Rahman. Philip, how are you?
Bobby, how you doing? You all right?
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks. I really should have poured myself a stiff drink today. It's really good to see you. We did miss you last time.
I mean, I genuinely did have flu, but I would have certainly put my 2-piece in, and I gave it a 2, so that's probably appropriate. So there we go.
Yeah, I mean, you would have literally taken the jam out of our collective donuts. So maybe it was best that you skipped that one. Anyway, moving swiftly on, my Play Paul's Turn colleagues are here again. I'm so happy to see them. I wish you were under different circumstances, but there we go. We have got Ant-Man to look forward to soon. It's, first of all, the voice of reason, Alex Hansford. Alex, how are you?
Hello, you couldn't keep me away, could you?
Couldn't. Even your day trip to Leicester couldn't keep you away. Thank you so much for screaming back down to make it in time for this. And we also... this would not be a Bondathon now without the sexiest voice in podcasting, let's face it. I have had messages, both on social media, and I've had emails about from people commenting on the voice of this very lovely man. It's John Evans. John.
Hello. So I've been sitting here with a sort of cold sweat and panic as I realise that my computer speakers have been on for the last 2 minutes. So,
oh dear.
Hopefully, Roberto's wonderful editing process will stop that, and I can now relax and enjoy Sheena Easton in all her glory.
Yeah. Do you know something? I've had For your eyes only. I've had that going through my head since we finished recording Moonraker, and that was back before Christmas. It was like 6 weeks ago. So thank you for that. And yes, Alex, what editing process? Thank you. He just said in the chat.
I was being polite, but yeah.
But yeah, I think today we are going to go. Oh, spoiler alert! First of all, listen, everybody, anyone who's there, we are going to be spoiling the living daylights out of this film. I still haven't. I know. I'm sorry. It's like the 12th time I've used that pun. But anyway, what can we do? We're almost at that. No, we're not almost at that. Maybe. Anyway,
we've got a while to go.
Yeah. So, spoiler alert. Firstly, we are going to be spoiling the living daylights out of For Your Eyes Only. It's only been out since 1981. If you haven't seen it, you know what to do. Press pause, go play the film, and then come back and join us for what will be one of the shortest Bondathons of all time. And that was the other spoiler alert. This is going to be probably quite short. Or maybe not. Maybe we get surprised. I'm going to act as conductor today and let the boys go play. So, 1981. We come off the back of Moonraker, which was a huge success. Phil will have something to say about this because we've got some historical stuff that's going on in the background with recessions and depressions and things. So 1981 wasn't a huge year for Hollywood blockbusters because I think all the film studios were possibly trying to save money. Don't interrupt yet, Phil, but we will come to you on that in just a second. So The Spy Who Loved Me, the Bond producers decided that they'd gone a little bit over the top with Moonraker, despite the fact that then to date it was the biggest Bond film in terms of revenue, profit, all the rest of it. But they decided to sort of go a bit more back to the roots of the old classic Connery spy capers, like From Russia with Love. So we ended up with this. What was the box office take, peeps?
Box office
budget of 28 million.
Yeah,
and it did what, 185?
Yeah, no, it says here gross 50. It says 55 gross worldwide.
What, really?
Yeah,
that can't be right.
That's what IMDb tells us.
Budget of 28 million. I'm just going now. I found my notes. And box office of 195 million.
Where did you get that from?
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia.
Which one's more accurate? IMDb. This is going to be a more fun debate.
It's a good question. Probably mentally, it probably doesn't deserve that much, but it probably got it.
Yeah.
We'll double check the numbers.
I'm going to check my James Bond archive book now. So anyway, the plot was based, they'd kind of drawn it up out of two Ian Fleming stories, The Spy Who Loved Me and the other one I can't pronounce. And several scripts were drawn up from between 79 through to 80, and ultimately Cubby rejected all of them. And he got Richard Maybaum back, and Maybaum basically enlisted Michael G. Wilson, who up until that point had been a producer on the Bond films, to co-write the script with him. John Glenn directs his first ever feature film. John Glenn, we know that name because he was second unit director on a lot of the Bond films before. Work that is to his great credit are things like the ski sequence in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And also he was responsible for putting together that incredible ski jump at the beginning of The Spy Who Loved Me. So the usual, whoever the first choice was for director wasn't available. And basically Cubby called all of the second unit team to the meeting room, and he just had a series of lunches with them over a series of days and weeks, and eventually they all kind of dropped off and stopped attending, and John Glenn was the only one who was still left standing. And Cubby turned around to him and said, "How do you fancy directing the next Bond?" and it was the happiest day of John Glenn's life, because he was all for going big or going home. John,
can you just check for me who the head of the special effects department was, by the way?
Yeah, sure. I will do that now. So let's have a look. Head of special effects.
Oh,
I think while we're waiting for this,
It was me.
while we're waiting for this, it's worth noting.
John Evans.
Yeah,
it was. Very nice.
Oh wow! Oh my god! You must have been like the youngest VFX artist in the history of cinema.
It was my first big break, and I've aged well. So,
yeah. So how did you do a lot of the special effects, John? Were you using your Etch-a-Sketch?
Lots of matchsticks, propping cars up and flipping them over. One thing we found quite challenging was putting the turntable on the top of the 2CV so it spun on its roof. That was quite a challenge.
Right. Oh, yeah, the TCV. Now, we will talk about that because the TCV has been mentioned before, and I did not know that it was this film that car would pop up.
Bond's favourite Bond car. Roger Moore's favourite Bond car, apparently.
So Phil did come up in conversation for quite a bit of this film, especially that particular sequence. So, right, cast. Roger Moore returns as James Bond. Carol Bouquet plays the Bond girl, Melina Havelock. Julian Glover is Christatos. Topol is Milos Colombo. And BB Doll is Lynn Holly Johnson is BB Doll. And Lois Maxwell is back as Moneypenny. Desmond Llewellyn's back as Q. But unfortunately, Bernard Lee, he made it to set the first day, but he was ill. I think he had stomach cancer, and he wasn't able to work, and he died during production. They decided not to recast his role. Cubby didn't want to do that. So James Villiers was called upon to play Bill Tanner, James Bond's ex-colleague in the army or the military, portrayed for the first time on screen that character. And then Jeffrey King came back as Minister of Defense, stepping in for M, who is meant to be on leave. And then Walter Gottel is back as General Gogol, who we've seen in several Bond movies now. As I mentioned before, John Glenn is director, his first major film, screenplay, Richard Maybaum and Michael G. Wilson, and as usual, produced by Hubby Broccoli. Overall plot, what did we think? They used a MacGuffin, and basically the entire film was just built around this thing that was mentioned at the beginning and then didn't appear again until the end. But what did we think of the overall plot of this film? Phil?
I mean, to me, the plot was kind of secondary. I mean, I felt that the main highlights were when we got to Cortina, and seeing the ski sequences and seeing just how good ski holidays could be if you find the right location. And Cortina was certainly a lovely location for that. And it feels like the 1980 Winter Olympics must have been very, very popular because they highlighted every possible Olympic sport in this film. There was figure skating, there was biathlon, there was cross-country skiing, there was four-man bob, there was hockey, there was ski jumping. They even did like a somersault, which I think you'll find in like the moguls as well. So they covered everything, probably because they were in Lake Placid and it was an American film, and they're probably getting over. They're still very excited about the fact the USA beat Russia in the ice hockey when they really shouldn't have done. The Miracle on Ice of 1980.
Anyone that's wondering right now, yes, if you're ever in a pub quiz and the subject is, or a mastermind and the subject is the Winter Olympics, Phil's your go-to guy.
So, I mean, I thought that what they were looking for was the ATAC, which was blown up in a spy ship, a UK spy ship, and then it turned out to be a cash register. Is that pretty much what it is?
It looked like a cash.
Yeah.
Cash register. You're right.
They had the whole idea of it being an enigma machine except that it really did look like a catfish, didn't it? It didn't have any sort of redeeming features about it at all. It was like they just pulled something off of off his catalogue and just said, "Yeah, that'll be it."
To be fair, if you look at kind of naval machinery and sort of interfaces, they're pretty functional and they're not designed for, to look nice. So I think, although it is a bit tacky, I think it's designed to look like a functional device rather than a fancy device, like a sort of gilded cabinet where things open and there's a screen behind in previous films.
Yeah, but it's not as much fun though.
No.
Yeah, I should have given a little synopsis, shouldn't I? I'll do that now with your permission. British agent James Bond is dispatched to recover a strategic communications device, the ATAC that we've been talking about, before it finds its way into the hands of the Russians. When the secret device that controls Britain's Polaris submarines goes missing after the spy ship carrying it sinks, 007 joins forces with a vengeful woman and a wealthy hero of the Greek resistance movement to find the equipment. But the producers openly said that the ATAC was a MacGuffin, and for anyone listening that doesn't know what a MacGuffin is, because you're not as much a film geek as we are, a MacGuffin is basically a device or a thing that an entire plot is built around. It's introduced at the beginning to kind of get the plot moving or get the story moving, but then it's very rarely mentioned ever again. And it was a device used by famous filmmakers, Hitchcock being one of the most notable. And yeah, there you go. So that's what this ATAC thing is. It's a MacGuffin.
It would have been better. It would have been better if it was like in Pulp Fiction, where they just kept it in a briefcase or a container and they never actually showed it. And if someone looked at it, they'd be like, "Oh, look at that! Is that what I think it is? Wow!" But none of that. It was just like, here it is. It'll be £2.50, mate.
Quite a lager, please. A packet of crisps.
Yeah. Ching!
I mean, the film opens with, and we're not doing a run through of the film from start to finish. We're going in categories today. Otherwise, I'll lose my sanity. But it opens with that sequence with. What they can't say is Blofeld because they've still got the McCrory rights issue going on in the background, but it's obviously Blofeld in a neck brace. So this opening sequence is the reason why people see this film, or some people see this film as a spiritual sequel to On Her Majesty's Secret Service, because the story was that they so for anyone listening at home that hasn't seen this film. And again, go watch it and then come back. The opening sequence, there's a guy in a wheelchair with a bald head stroking a white cat in a neck brace, a la Telly Savalas at the end of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Bond is basically visiting Diana Rigg, Tracy's grave,
Teresa, yeah.
and lays flowers there. And then a helicopter comes in to pick him up to take him to MI5 or MI6 or whatever it is that he works for. And then all of a sudden, the helicopter goes haywire, and we find out that not Blofeld is controlling the helicopter and is trying to send 007 to yet another early death. But I just, as kind of jaw-dropping as I found some moments of that opening sequence, the stunt work with the helicopter, whatever the poor stunt guy was doing, it was probably the same guy that had to hang out of the ski cart lift thing in Moonraker. Sorry, my Cocker Spaniel's in the background trying to get out now because he can't make up his mind whether he wants to be here or not. But
Did he like the film?
Did he like the film? I don't know. Bailey, did you like The Spy Who Loved Me? Huh? Do you want to come and give your rating?
For Your Eyes Only, not The Spy Who Loved Me.
What are we watching? Oh yeah, For Your Eyes Only.
For Your Eyes Only.
Once for yes, but twice for a martini.
Hey, did you like a spy Who Loved Me?
No.
Sorry,
Oh my God, for your eyes only. Let's sing it again to remind you, shall we, Bobby? For your eyes.
Oh my God, I haven't even taken anything today.
Make this the thumbnail on YouTube. You'll get loads more views.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Right, Bailey. Did you like For Your Eyes Only?
No.
Bailey
You're not getting
says, I really couldn't have cared less. You liked Moonraker, though, didn't you? Eh? You did like Moonraker.
Oh, that's
Because
not
it
death.
had
That's a good
Jaws in
boy.
it.
Yeah.
That's
So,
right.
yeah, I found the opening sequence, the concept of it was a bit jarring because we'd had about 3 or 4 movies in between. Now, there are different stories. The stories going around are that they didn't know that Roger Moore was going to come back, and they were screen testing for other actors. And actually, Timothy Dalton was asked to come in and audition, and they gave him the script, and he basically chucked it back at them and said, "Don't like what you're doing with Bond and the direction it's going in, so I'm not interested." But then and Roger Moore by this time was on a pay-as-you-play sort of contract deal, so he had his first 3 pictures, and then after that it was per film was his thing. And so he was kind of just silently waiting in the wing with a grin on his face and a raised eyebrow while they were auditioning all these actors, and didn't like any of them. And then eventually they came crawling back to him, and he said he would do it. As Roger Moore says, they couldn't get anyone as cheap as me. So yeah, there we are. But I did find it really, really jarring. How about you guys?
Was it kind of like a way of saying goodbye to Blofeld for the very last time? Is that what it was all about?
I think it was partly that they wanted to sort of stick a finger up to the whole Blofeld thing and say, we don't need Blofeld for it to be Bond. But it was also partly that they didn't know if Roger Moore was coming back. So they kind of filmed that whole thing to show that it was still James Bond, and, that it was still the same sequence of films and so on. And then Roger Moore did come back, and they decided just to keep it in. And then that was when it became a finger to the whole we don't need Blofeld sort of deal. But, with that, and then the end scene that they had in this film, it just put this entire thing in the bin for me, and I just couldn't.
Sorry, do you mean Margaret Thatcher?
Yeah, the Maggie Thatcher and Dennis Thatcher scene at the end.
I like that. I thought when Dennis was trying to steal some of the sprouts and she slapped his hand, I thought that was hilarious.
Was it Mike Yarwood also that was playing Dennis Thatcher as well?
Was it?
I don't think it was Mike Yarwood. No, I can't remember their names, but the 2 people
John
that were playing
Wells.
Maggie Thatcher and
Yeah.
they were
Janet
known
Brown
impressionists.
and John Wells.
Yeah, so she was famous for doing impressions of Maggie Thatcher at the time, and so was he, not of Maggie Thatcher, of Dennis. But yeah, there was something. I'll tell you what the problem is with this film for me. It felt a little bit like Saturday afternoon. In Spain we call them telenovelas, right? It just had that sort of feeling of a Saturday afternoon, Magnum PI, not even as good as Magnum PI type sort of show,
That's how I watched all of them at my age when I watched these came out.
Yeah.
That's how I enjoyed them. Saturday afternoon, ITV or whatever film, because I was too young to go to the cinema to watch them, or they're out on TV after they came out of the cinema.
Mm.
The one thing I would say is interesting about that final scene is the fact that Margaret Thatcher had only been Prime Minister for a maximum of 2 years, and she'd already carved out such an iconic presence that anyone who would have seen her would immediately have known that this was the British Prime Minister. I mean, have they done that in any other Bond before or since?
I think so.
No, they didn't.
Pretty significant, but it was more of a showcase about how amazing our Prime Minister was perceived to be at the time. I mean, for many people, she most certainly was not, but everyone clearly knew who she was back then.
Yeah. But I think if you got rid of the bookmarks from either end of that film, it would have been a pretty decent spy caper. But that's the problem. It's kind of, I went into it and then I couldn't take it seriously. And then by the time I warmed up and it was near the end, that I was like, oh, actually, this isn't that bad. And then that end scene comes with Maggie and Dennis. And I just turned around to Carolina and I was like, okay, this film had just redeemed itself. And now it's in the bin again.
Can I ask you, Bobby, is this the first time you've seen this film?
I had never seen this before. I've never seen it before.
No, I've never seen it either.
Never seen it either. Oh my word!
I had seen it.
Yeah, I had as well.
But it's the
I
one.
mean,
It's the
I
one film.
thought-
It's probably the least talked about Bond film of the entire series.
I mean,
who-
I think as far as an opening sequence, the fact that he got dropped into Battersea Power Station, that should have been a really great thing. And then it just then eased into the music, which turned into this really soft music. Didn't work.
Hold on,
It
hold on.
probably
hold on,
needed to have
hold
a
on.
bigger.
Phil, are you dissing the Eastern here?
Absolutely, I am. This is before she met up with Prince.
No, but I mean, okay, I'll give you that. But it's not
also
the best
Prince and Phil synonymous.
No,
He's
I'm not going to diss. I'm not going to diss the Prince. I mean, it's not the best Bond theme, but it's definitely the sexiest, don't you think? Surely, what a voice Jean Easton has. She makes my tummy go fizzy whenever I hear her voice.
No,
I mean, fair play to her for getting that gig so early in her career. I think she'd only really had maybe a year's worth of like a music career before she got it. So fair play to her. She wasn't even that popular then. So,
by the way, guys, I love
good?
how we've dispensed with plot. We've done that now. We've just moved on to music.
We'll go back to plot. Don't worry.
We'll come back to it.
Talk about.
No, I don't want to bounce around everywhere. I want to do categories.
Can I just
today.
address your somewhat shocking lack of knowledge about MI5 and MI6 on now a year's worth of Bondathon podcasts, Bobby? I don't know what you have been taking, but you need to get a bit of a stiff upper lip, young man. So MI5 is local domestic intelligence, and MI6 is foreign.
MI5 are the spooks.
Yeah, they're domestic
slow
intelligence.
horses.
They were mainly concerned at the time in the 80s with the IRA and all during the Troubles. But MI6, to be fair to you, Bobby, at the time that Ian Fleming actually made Bond, the British government hadn't actually confirmed the existence of MI6. So kind of called the UK's Overseas Intelligence Organisation. But I would imagine that Ian Fleming, who worked in that area, didn't he? We've all seen Operation Mincemeat. Probably knew more about it than most people. So it wasn't really MI6 at the time either. That kind of came in more recently. But yeah, MI6 is foreign, MI5 is domestic.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, John. I won't make that mistake again.
For shame, Bobby. For shame.
You know what? Shall I tell you why I'm tired?
Why?
So, Microsoft owns the rights or whatever. Is it Rare that they bought? Yeah. And so GoldenEye came out on Game Pass on my Xbox. What's my Xbox, Alex? Series X.
Yeah.
Whatever the new fancy Xbox is that anybody
X.
listening wants and doesn't have because they can't get their hands on one, I have it. And I have the PS5. And I've been playing that, and it's straight back to being 18, 19 years old again and playing till like 4 a.m.
Okay, but we need to play online because I'll download it too.
Yeah,
okay,
me
cool.
too.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty exhausted from that because also I needed to play GoldenEye again last night just to palate cleanse myself of this movie. So yeah. But while we're on the subject of music, so John obviously loves it. Phil indifferent. Me indifferent. It's definitely, see, again, I judge a Bond theme by, do I listen to it when it's on random in my 007 playlist, or do I skip it? And this one, I kind of skip it. Sorry. Alex?
Yeah,
I'd skip. Do it for you?
I'm skip.
It's a skip.
Yeah.
There you go.
Not.
3 skips, John. You're outvoted.
I'm the only one here providing Sheena Easton with her 1.001 pence for every play that I play. So there you go. Thank me, Sheena.
Yeah. She's the first artist, though, to actually appear singing the song in the title sequence.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. I'm trying
Did you read
to
that
redeem her.
incredible fact about how they filmed her as well?
No, go for it.
So the way that the process was done for the in terms of the cinematography of her singing over, the sort of the usual silhouettes of ladies swimming around in the nudie, they had issues with the camera and the kind of the low resolution. Well, you have to use a soft focus. soft light focus, but a very high resolution film stock. What would happen is whenever she moved, even like a tiny little wobble of her head, the image would blur on the film. And so Maurice Binder, who was directed the title sequence, he actually had to then get Sheena Easton and put her head in a steel clamp during the sequence she was filmed and keep her head still. And then they kind of hid the tongs of the clamp in her, a sort of big 80s hairstyle, and then like a sort of support behind her back. But Sheena Easton said it was like a really, really painful thing to wear. But the filming it looked really good in the actual sequence. These days that wouldn't be an issue at all. Cameras are so much better these days, but everything's filmed digitally these days anyway, so you wouldn't have a problem with 70mm stock. But I just think what an incredible thing. It's almost Victorian having to put the poor lady's head into a clamp to film her. Anyway,
yeah,
she went through great pains for that sequence. Don't skip her.
That's probably why Diana Ross didn't do
it. Bill Conti comes in place of the guy that usually does the music. John Barry.
Yeah. He couldn't get back in for taxation reasons, could he? So he couldn't do the soundtrack.
That's right.
It's sort of twangy 80s guitar-y sort of like. In fact, Bobby, I was reminded of some of the tracks of Magnum PI when I heard it. So there you go.
Well, Bill Conti's most famous for the Rocky soundtracks, right?
Yeah.
And he came in sort of quite pleased to do the gig, but then because he was kind of tired of Rocky, because for Rocky he was getting tired of being asked to do the same thing for each film, because by 1981 we'd had 2 Rocky films. Because when was Rocky 3 was after 81, because that was the Mr. T one, so that was off the back of his 18 fame and so on. But 2 Rocky films, and he was fed up because he'd just basically been, his words, asked to do the same thing film after film. And so he came into Bond, but then the producers said, whatever you do whatever you want, but you have to make sure that James Bond's theme is played throughout the film in some way, shape or form, because otherwise it wouldn't be a Bond film without it. And that actually helped him for the Rocky series that he'd continue to do, because then he got it. The Rocky saga is not, it's not Rocky without those themes that keep propping up soundtrack after soundtrack. And so he suddenly, that sort of helped him with that other film series when he went back to it anyway. So I thought I'd throw that in there. I did not like the soundtrack. I did not like the way that he twisted around the James Bond theme. I did not like the twangy guitars. I did not like the fact that it was like, oh my God, we are really in like the real stereotypical cliche trashy side of the 80s, the bit that I really hate from my childhood. How did everyone else find the composition of the music of this film? Let's go to you, John. Sorry, Phil.
I'll go quick. I liked Sheena Easton. The rest of it was mostly sort of Saturday afternoon Magnum PI TV garbage.
There you go. Phil?
The note I put was music based on disco synth. It's almost as if they had a Casio keyboard and they just took some of the notes from that to create the James Bond soundtrack throughout. It sounded awful.
Alex, I love how short and sharp this is.
Utterly forgettable is probably the best way to do it. I mean, there's nothing. I think that's one of the problems with this film is that when you look at all of the pieces to it, you go, I mean, yeah, it's all right. It's just, there's nothing, it's ticking a lot of boxes. There's lots of action. There's music. There's nice scenery that, you've got Sheena Easton. John likes her. So that's one. But
by the way, I don't think it's a terrible song. I just think it's, for me, it's just not high energy enough when I'm driving.
Yeah. I think it's just it's just really, I think a lot about this film is pretty forgettable. And I think that's part of the problem. There are some really good bits that I'd like to get to, but we're not there yet.
No.
The problem is you don't have a proper iconic villain in this, really.
Yeah.
The Locke, I mean, he doesn't speak a single word of the film, does he?
No.
You don't have this foil for Bond where they can, put him on a table and saw his legs apart or whatever. So they don't really have. You don't have that kind of enjoyment of the moustache twirling villain, and we haven't discussed it yet. We don't have the gadgets. There were very few gadgets in this, apart from an exploding car and a cash register. And I mean, very nice Bond girl and everything else. Great locations, great action sequences. But I see what you mean. It kind of feels a bit like a filler Bond film. And I think it's shocking because it saved United Artists from going bust, this film. So, I mean, it served a purpose. It kept the Bond franchise going, and we still get Bond films now. But it's a funny one, this one, isn't it? It has some redeeming features, definitely. We'll talk about that when we do our ratings at the end.
This was the last Bond film released under the United Artists banner, because then they got swallowed up by MGM.
Yeah. And then you had your Lion, didn't you?
And then you had your Lion, exactly. That's it. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I was listening to a few other Bonds-ish type, Bondathon type podcasts the last couple of days, and the one thing that everybody agreed on is the fact that it is a film that some people just don't remember or don't talk about. It's like, just that sort of Bond film that's in the background. It's like, oh, For Your Eyes Only. That was a thing. Because I mean, even after after Moonraker, I was immediately sort of, my mind was going to Octopussy as being the next thing. I completely, leapfrogged over this. I've also actually, while I think of it, I need to ask you something. So around 83, I think it was, Sony need to make a Bond film, and they asked Sean Connery to do it. And I think Sean Connery, as a finger up or whatever, says, yeah, go on then. Needs some more money for one of his Scottish trusts or whatever. And then he makes Never Say Never Again, which I think was about 1983. Are we going to watch that?
I think we should.
I think we should.
Have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if we don't want to.
I've seen about 60 seconds of it, and it was terrible.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great podcast.
So what, like this one? Because this one's as flat as a pancake.
I'm sure it
sorry.
won't be this bad.
Do you know what? We did a phone test for any movies that we watched, right? And The Spy Who Loved Me, I didn't even know I had an iPhone. Moonraker, I didn't know I had 2 iPhones. And this film, I think I edited some of my new YouTube shorts while this film was playing in the background because I was that interested in it. Cast. Let's talk about the cast. So, unforgettable Bond villain. They went for Julian Glover, who very, very good actor. But the idea was that, again, as much as they didn't want to make the film as fantastical as the ones before, they didn't want the villain to be either. And they were inspired by, I think it was an earlier script treatment. And in an early script treatment, the plot kind of followed the sort of, the end of it. Bond, there were 2 other protagonists, and Bond thought he could trust one, and he didn't trust the other. And at the end, there was a switcheroo, and it turned out that the one he trusted was the one that he shouldn't have, turned out to be the bad guy. And then the other one was actually the one that he should have trusted and whatever. So they were kind of partly inspired by that duality of character. And that's what they were trying to do with Julian Glover's character. So, because for the time that I was on YouTube, he went from being someone who I thought was on the good side. And then I suddenly looked up from my phone after editing my latest short, and I saw that he was now the bad guy. So that's where all that came from.
What? It's just occurred to me who he is.
Julian Glover.
He was in Indiana Jones, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
He had that problem with the cut where he gave him a lot of aging very quickly.
Yeah.
He was also General Veers in The Empire Strikes Back.
You
know
have
what?
chosen.
You get those nagging doubts about, I recognise him, but I don't know where from.
You have chosen badly. And then Indiana Jones gets, you have chosen wisely.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should do the Indiana Jones films for Claypool's turn.
We will.
Yeah. There we go. Take your shots. Look, I got it in late this time. That's the other podcast, anyone who's listening. So yeah, cast.
Actually, Bobby, say it 4 times, and then maybe they'll drunk enough to appreciate the show.
Yeah. Lois Maxwell returns. I don't know how many more she does, but by now I think it's sort of the first time that she's older, or Moneypenny is older than Bond. So it's kind of gone from the playful flirtation of the Connery films and now to what seems to be the winter of this Moneypenny's tenure.
He's in Octopussy.
He does another
Is
two.
she? Okay.
And View to Kill as well.
Yeah. But I just, that you know, where we don't see Roger Moore throwing the hat, but when we see Moneypenny on screen, the hat sort of flies through the air and lands on the coat stand. That was a really nice nod to the Sean Connery days, I thought. But it also made me feel kind of sad because then there was none of that sort of sexual frisson between them. It was more like, you know, an aunt kissing a nephew, older nephew or something. So yeah, but there we go. It was always nice to see her. Desmond Llewellyn back as usual, getting his wrist slapped by all and sundry, and Bond annoying him, but didn't really have too much to do in this. He had his big gadget, which was the what was it called? It was from the book Thunderball, I think, or Goldfinger. John's looking it up, but it was that facial recognition software.
Oh, the identity graph.
Yeah, I've never been able to get a picture that looks that good out of a dot matrix
Guide
printer.
to Galaxy, wasn't it? It's a page from Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy. It's the same graphics, people.
Yeah.
I thought it was a tremendous graphic. I mean, gadget. I mean, you know, the smallest amount of information identified the henchman who paid off Hector Gonzalez. I thought it was brilliant.
He looked like him before Bond had started talking about him. That was the funniest bit. Like the first image was him, essentially. That's what
also, it can take them days to run fingerprint recognition. Yet they managed to get that level of facial recognition in literally about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Have any of you played? Oh, gone.
I must say the way that his James Bond superiors in this particular film spoke to him, they spoke to him with real contempt. I mean, this is Commander Bond, and you had a superior saying to him, well, I think we should get to the. He says, well, I think I should get to the identity graph to identify him. And he goes, well, get to it then, man. I thought, hang on a minute, don't talk to me like that. I'd be like, do you know who you're talking to? This guy saves the world all the time, and this guy just gets talked to like he's a little kid.
Do you know what I want to see, Phil? I want to see a Bond film where Bond is being managed or bossed around by Statler and Waldorf from the Muppets. Yeah, Alex, you were going to talk about a very famous game, weren't you? Guess who?
Guess who? Yeah, have you played Guess Who?
Yeah,
that was basically what it was. It was like, has he got glasses? Yes, he's got glasses. Okay, what's his hair? Oh, he's got brown hair. Okay, that's great. Is he a man? Yes, he's a man. Right, I now tell you it's Hector Gonzalez or whatever his name was. And it was just comical how it worked. But I loved it. You know, Q did it with a straight face, as always.
Now, let's. I've shared a picture with the team, listeners. I've shared a very special picture. I want you to try and guess. I'm sure one of you already know from the notes. It's one of those annoying pictures you have to click to open. You can't just view it.
Okay.
The man with the cast on his arm. Why is he special?
Why is he special?
The picture of Bond. It's the first sequence as he walks into Q's lab, and
there's a guy in the cast, and the cast sort of smashes the guy's head
in his pocket, and the cast flips off and smashes the dummy's face into pieces. But why is the man in the cast special?
Because he later goes on to play Tim in The Office.
Looks a bit like him. He's already played another character, quite a famous character in another film. Now, can any of you spot what that character was?
Oh God! You know, he's got one of those faces that I'm like, I know it, but I just
you are gonna kick yourself when you hear who it is. Okay, so let's grab the picture one more time to our listeners. It's The opening sequence, if you are watching the film alongside this podcast or have watched it, go back and just at the beginning of the scene. There's a big board with really, really clever writing on the back, lots of sort of scientific language, which no one really knows what it means. There's Bond in a very sharp grey suit. There's Q looking back at this gentleman in sort of brown, leather, not leather, but leather, faux leather trousers. And he's got a cast on his arm. He's got a very weird stripy shirt and tie, and the cast flips off and smashes his dummy's head. But the man in that picture, I'll put you out your misery, is Jeremy Bullock.
Boba Fett. Oh my God. Do you know what? Actually, there's a few little sci-fi type geeky strands through this film. Because while we're talking about Boba Fett, if we go to another science fiction property, as soon as Topol, who plays Milos Colombo, popped up on screen, I was like, oh my God, it's Dr. Hans Zarkov.
Flash Gordon.
Exactly, Flash Gordon. And then obviously you got the link with Timothy Dalton. And then another Bond, Pierce Brosnan, was on set while this was being filmed because his wife, Cassandra Harris, was playing Countess Liel von What's-Her-Face?
Schlaff.
Schlaff. That sounds rude.
That's the name, yeah, Schlaff.
Schlaff. There's everything in German sounds really rude, doesn't it? I like listening to German.
And I hope I'm not stealing your thunder, but there was also Henchman number 2, played by Charles Dance.
His first feature film appearance, isn't it? This one.
Yeah,
that's right. I can't think what Charles Dance has been in. Game of Thrones, maybe.
Game of Thrones.
He was in Game of Thrones. He's done loads of films.
He was an amazing TV series about an ape that could talk as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
What was that series? Damn, I'm looking it up now.
I've not.
It was really Jewel of the Crown. He was in Jewel of the Crown.
Wasn't he in a lot of Merchant Ivory films like White Mischief and things like that as well?
Golden Child.
His greatest work, his greatest work, The Last Action Hero. Yeah.
Oh yes. Firstborn. That was it.
Firstborn. That was good.
I typed in Charles Dance ape Gore because I'm pretty sure Gore was the name of the ape in the series.
So, he was called Gore. It was the only thing, the first thing you could say after the.
I'm getting into that the final sequence right at the end of the
series. Oh, it's horrible.
God, it's horrible. Oh,
it's bad. Yeah, it's bad.
Anyway, how did that series end?
Well, spoil it. But because Gore grows up. He looks like an ape when he's born, but he grows up and looks like a man, doesn't he? Because he's a hybrid.
Yeah.
And then
I'm kind of vaguely remembering this.
He has a wife, and his wife gives birth, and out comes this ape going Gore, Gore, like that, and it just zooms in on Charles Dance's face, and they're all like Rick just of shock, and then it pans away, and the series ends. Brilliant. It all sort of like a loop. It all starts again.
Oh my God!
Firstborn.
Yeah. My mum used to record all of these sort of TV shows, and then we would just watch them on a Sunday or whatever.
1988, only 7 years after For Your Eyes Only. But
Anyway, okay. So Boba Fett was in it, and rest in peace, by the way, because he died recently, didn't he?
Last year.
Very sad. Now, Bond girl.
Which one?
I liked her. Carol Bouquet. I liked her. Melina.
I like Carol Bouquet, definitely.
Yeah. It's sad that I just ever hear her voice, though.
I just found her really vanilla compared to previous Bond girls. That she did nothing for me whatsoever, and I don't mean that in a sexual way. I just meant, just in terms of dynamism or whatever. I just found her a little bit flat.
I thought she was very striking. I thought she was very striking. She had that vibe of the sort of really sexy woman you'd see in Europe. You're certainly not of the UK. They don't manufacture women like that in the UK. That's for sure.
Now, stop me if I'm wrong. Wasn't there a Bond girl called Honey near the beginning of the series of the film?
Yeah.
Melina is Greek for honey, so I wonder if that's a callback to that.
No, I think they just needed to change the name of the character. It was originally Julie Havelock in an earlier draft.
Was she British?
And then her
dad was British.
Yeah,
her mum was Greek.
No, but the original Havelock character was meant to be fully British.
Because that name's
And
much
then
more
they-
British sounding, isn't it, than
Yeah.
Melina? Yeah.
Yeah, but then to show when they moved it all to all this Corfu stuff and so on, then she needed to be half British, half Greek.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I just like Diana Rigg, rest in peace. You don't need to worry about this one taking your crown, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, you're still
Shall
the
we-
best.
Shall we talk about BB?
Now, Phoebe, I have to say, apart from her exclamations and so on, she was a little bit more interesting. It's not quite the word. Right? She was in
Nymphomaniac, I think's the word you want, Bobby. Actually,
a what?
Nymphomaniac. I think.
Nymphomaniac. Yeah. Well, they deliberately tried to do the whole sort of Bond sort of not being a complete sex pest and so on. So it was like no gadgets, no sex, all the rest of it. And I think it kind of worked the first time when he resists her advances, but then they kind of kept playing the same gag over and over again, and then it started to get uncomfortable. Because the first time he rejects her, I turn around to Carolina because Carolina's usually the first one to go, "Oh my god, this is really sexist," blah blah blah, and we were both nodding at each other, and we were like, "Yeah, we approve of this. That's the way you should handle it." And then they just basically doubled and tripled and quadrupled down on the same joke throughout. But she turns out to sort of help at the end, doesn't she? She was. I think there was also something quite disturbing. Like she was quite young, and her uncle or whatever he was there was I don't know. There seemed to be like a suggestion that she was being groomed.
Yeah. And she was very much like, I know what you want, which again, there's a lot of red flags around that. And I think that's the big part of this is you're just going red flag, red flag, red flag. Right? I need more. I need sort of witnesses so that we can be clear that we're not related. This is nothing to do like that. Yeah, it was also completely unnecessary. That was the thing. It was clear that he's a lot older than both of the girls anyway. But also, it was just unnecessary. It didn't add anything to it. It was just throwaway.
Well, Alex, I mean, we know that Bond gets the girl at the end of the film. He beds Melina. Melina was only now a year older than Bibi. The actress is 1 year, a year in difference.
Wow, but
that's still quite dodgy, really, isn't it? To be honest.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it's funny. I didn't think about it that way, but yeah, they're both quite cringe.
Yeah. It was also Roger Moore's 53, I think, by this time. So he's getting on a bit. He's starting to look at it a bit.
And he looked at it. Yeah,
I don't know. Some of the behind the scenes shots, he looks adorable. I think I'd have married him. Just some of the shots with the sunset down. There's a scene on a boat where he's tied to Melina before they get dragged on the coral.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, they're on the back of the boat and the sun's setting, and they're having a giggle. Now I thought just that picture of him there, I could probably marry Roger Moore just then because he was just so adorable.
I think he's starting to become like he's starting to become like your mate's dad.
Yeah,
that you kind of had a bit of a crush on, but probably not enough to do anything with. Because that would obviously be wrong, but it's kind of yeah, but yeah, but it's got to that point, which is I guess that's a different kind, isn't it? But he kind of needs to play it that way. It was a bit strange.
That's why perhaps they're trying to get a younger Bond in, so they can start, getting bedding the ladies again for the next few films.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Topol, because I thought he was quite a good sort of buddy, comrade, ally for Bond. Great actor. Probably Israel's most famous actor. He was famous before this for Fiddler on the Roof. And the way how he got the part, there was a party in just off Regent's Park where every year there'd be a Thanksgiving party for Americans in London. And the Broccolis were there, and basically, I think it was Cubby's. It might have been his daughter or something. But anyway, turned round and said, "What about Topol for the part of Columbo?" And I was like, "Yeah," and that's how he got the part. It was as easy as that. He didn't even need to audition for it. But I will always remember him as Hans Zarkov from one of the greatest science fiction films of all time, Flash Gordon, which should never ever be remade.
No, ever.
Just leave that film as it is. Rest in peace, the director who died last week. Very sad. But I thought Topol was actually one of the highlights of this film. Anybody else?
He just looks the part, doesn't he? He looks like, I mean, the kind of the European sort of Lothario, slightly smuggler, bad
resistance fighter.
Adorable. Yeah, I loved his black sort of under his hat he wore on missions, but very cute little sort of black roll up hat. And he's no matter what facial expression he's got, you just think he's grinning the whole time, mate. Brilliant.
I think his chemistry with the other actors was really good. Yeah. He made the other actors perform better than when they were acting with other people in the film. I don't think that's that's the reason why there's only one shot between him and Lynn Holly Johnson, because I don't think anyone could make Lynn Holly Johnson any good as an actress. Sorry.
Yeah, but he was like, Topol. It was like if you brought a Lionel Messi into your team or something, he would just lift the whole squad up, right? Let's. I'm gagging to move on to the car. Sorry, because we were talking about BB. Phil, I'm going to give this one to you. So we had the Lotus, first of all, and that was blown up at the start. Now, that was partly because they decided to go with a no gadgets policy for this and just see what Bond would be like if he was left to his own devices. And the whole blowing up of the Lotus, there was a sticker in the window when the baddies go to sort of get into it, and it says, protected from burglars, and then the car blows up when they try and break the glass. And that was a nod to what was going on in America at the time, because there was a dramatic increase in car theft, and they thought that would go down well with the American audiences, and it did. It's quite a tenuous thing, but anyway, that someone obviously thought of it. And so the Lotus blows up, and so Melina and Bond have to switch. He says, "Don't suppose you've got a car, do you?" And they then jump in the Citroen 2CV, which is very special to you, Phil, isn't it? Do you want to tell us the story again for those that haven't heard it?
Yes. So when I was 6 years old, I was in hospital just for a few days. I had an operation. And when I came to, all of my family came to see me. And they thought what would be a very nice surprise was for them to give me a Bond car as a present for going through the operation. And to my surprise, I open up the box, and what do I find? The Citroen 2CV in front of me, and I'm like, "Wow, thanks, Dad. You really know how to get the excitement going." And he's like, "Look, son, the door's open." It's like, "Oh, I'm very pleased, Dad. Thanks a lot."
So, do an impression of your dad. Go on.
Look, the door's open. So like, "Oh, thanks, Dad. I'm very pleased." So I, at some point, got a bit sort of, didn't really care so much about the history of Bond or anything like that. And at some point, I remember trying to flush it down the toilet. And then when my dad sort of realized I didn't have it, he just thought I just lost it, and it was by accident, and he bought me another one. I was like, "Oh, thanks, Dad." So, yeah, I was wondering where that was, Dad. Yeah, thanks a lot. So, of all the Bond cars, that was the one that I got as a gift from my parents. So, thanks a lot, Dad. Corgi's own 2CV.
And not really much to say about it. Like previous Bond cars, we've had Alex running through all the gadgets on it. I can't even do that with you this time, Alex. I'm so sorry, because it didn't do anything apart from fall apart.
The Citroen 2CV, they had four of them, didn't they? They had four copies of it. One with the as I said in my work on the special effects of the film, with the rotating like turntable roof for the car to go upside down. But
That's it.
they replaced all the engines with a Citroen GS4 cylinder boxer engine. Otherwise, it would just, when the two cars chasing a couple of Peugeots, I think, excuse me, and a couple of motorbikes, would have just caught up with it straight away. Because 2CV is French for two chevaux, which is two horses. Literally, I've driven in a few of them down in Cornwall in my days where I used to go down to Cornwall a lot and drive in a 2CV and drink Mountain Gay rum. It's like a sort of Bond goes west, really, story. But there you go, for another podcast. But they had to soup up the engines to kind of keep away from the chasing baddies. That must have been quite good fun to sort of soup up a 2CV. But yeah, I thought, as I said before, Roger Moore's favourite Bond car is that 2CV. He loved that.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I do wish I had it now. But at the time, I was just not that excited about it.
I was also in hospital for an operation when I was the same age, Phil. So it would have been around the same time, probably, because we are the same age. And my dad got me a Transformer.
Yeah, well done. Yeah, well done, Bobby's dad. You got the right idea.
But I mean, any Transformer would be better than the Citroen 2CV. But the Transformer he got me was Inferno, which was one of the worst auto, but it's the fire engine.
I didn't even know about that one.
Neither do I. Like, no one knows about Inferno. But yeah, it was the fire engine.
He must have got that from Pram Toys in Norbury, where they had all the sort of, all the retro stuff off the back of a lorry was sold there, basically.
This has really been a sort of nostalgia trip so far, this episode, with like TV shows, Pram Toys in Croydon. Yeah, there we go. But so Citroen 2CV, well, that brings us neatly onto location. And this was the first location that sort of baffled Carolina and I, because when Bond travels to this location, he's told it's a village just outside of Madrid. And we obviously know the region extremely well because it's my wife's region. And we're looking at it, and I said to Carolina, that does not look like anywhere that we know outside of Madrid. And she's like, no, possibly La Mancha, but even the people don't look like they're Spanish. And obviously I found out afterwards that it was Corfu, doubling for Spain.
The way they made it look more Spanish is the production crew painted all the walls in along that road and all the houses white. And it took a bit of persuading for the locals, but once they'd finished filming, they then went round all the locals and asked them what colour they wanted their houses, and now all their houses repainted in their chosen colours afterwards. And I think what a nice touch that is. I mean, you have to keep them sweet, but a lot of work for a sequence that lasts about 15 seconds.
Yeah, but locals that still have those homes and are still around today, they're very, very proud of their James Bond moment and the fact that Bond was, filmed in their town. Very proud. So apparently, if you wander through that area and you get talking to any of the older locals and you mention 007, they'll quite happily entertain you with all the stories till the end of time. So that's rather nice.
The extra features on this, not for your eyes only. There's a whole sequence where they talk about the filming of that, and they showed the filming of the sequence through the village with all locals standing and watching. It's quite what's the word? It's quite charming to watch it, actually.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of the Bond films, definitely watch all the extra features because there's so much extra detail in there.
Yeah, no, I will watch the extras for this at some point in the future. So yeah, then they had all the skiing stuff, so that was very on Her Majesty's Secret Service. Although I have to say, the stunt where Bond is being chased, there was a lot of amazing stunt work there. And we also learned that James Bond can do a few other things as well, like, jump off a ledge on skis and twist in the air. He's Superman, isn't he? He's absolutely incredible. But my favourite bit of the whole snow bit was when he goes into the Cool Runnings thing. What's that sport called, Phil?
Four-man bob.
What?
Four-man bob.
The bobsled.
Four-man bobsled.
The bobsled.
Sounds like a serial killer. and he's skiing down that, and then he's got the guy on the motorbike chasing after him. Apparently, someone died.
Yeah,
Someone
Paolo
actually lost his
Rigoni
life.
died, one of the stuntmen.
Yeah, really sad. But what an amazing sequence! Really cool, and it was such a callback to On Her Majesty's Secret Service as well, which I think adds to
a lot of the plot is though, Bobby. A lot of the plot is a callback because I'm pretty sure on Her Majesty's Secret Service, there's a sequence on the beach where Bond is with a lady, and then the bad guys sort of run up to him and start attacking him. Much like
that is at the beginning.
Well. Yeah,
it's at the beginning.
There's also a casino, isn't there, in both films?
Mm-hmm. Because I thought this was the first time that we've seen Roger Moore in a tux at a table, a la Sean Connery playing Baccarat or whatever game he was playing. I don't even know.
So
Baccarat,
let's run this down a bit. So in both movies, right? Bond is with the Countess on the beach, being threatened by goons. Yeah,
yeah.
Both movies show Bond at casino with the Countess in both films. Both times the women are losing at Baccarat. This film shows Tracy Bond's grave and Blofeld and neck brace. In this movie, Melina's half English, half Greek. In Her Majesty's Secret Service, Tracy's half English, half Italian. Both movies have Bond allied with a crime syndicate figure who doesn't sell drugs. Yeah. Bond escapes in both movies by riding in the car of the female lead, who does the majority of the driving. Both movies have a wedding scene, and Bond riding in a helicopter piloted by someone else. Both movies have Bond speaking with a priest at some point. Both movies are set in the Alps at one point. Both movies show a Bond girl on ice, have Bond on skis getting shot at, and have a bobsleigh track fight or battle sequence. In both films, they have mountain climbers. They have a Germanic female character in charge of a girl or girls. I'm thinking of BB's coach. And then in both movies, Bond and his crime syndicate ally assault a mountaintop lair.
And that is probably why some people see For Your Eyes Only. I have to keep checking the name of this film because I keep wanting to say The Spy Who Loved Me. For Your Eyes Only as the spiritual sequel to On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Yeah.
It's almost a homage, isn't it, really? Let's be honest.
So what I would like to do is I'm going to take footage of Bond when he's climbing up that sort of cliff up to the monastery. And I'm going to cut it with the Limp Bizkit track from Mission Impossible 2 when Tom Cruise in the opening sequence is doing that amazing stunt. And then just see how that sort of plays out and how it looks. I mean, Tom Cruise, he ain't. But it was a reasonably thrilling sequence all the same. That whole kind of, the bad guy with a gun sort of knocking off the notches from the rope. Obviously, I've never done any kind of rock climbing in my life, so I have no idea what the technical terms are.
The technique he used with his laces to climb up ropes was a known technique. And I think when the film was actually shown, it was the 50th anniversary of that technique being invented. I can't remember the name of it now. It's got a funny name to it. So I think it's called the Prusik knot that they use. And it's a bit you can actually buy. Because I used to do a bit of climbing. You can actually buy modern reimaginings of that technique using metal alloy hardware that lets you hitch and climb. I think the British military as well lets you hitch and climb up. Sorry, am I boring you, Bobby, with my rope stories? But I think it's really interesting that Bond, who's an ex-military character, or is a military character, isn't he? Really knows that technique. I think that's quite cool.
But would that have worked with laces?
Yes, it's been known to be done with laces.
Oh, okay.
To do with shoelaces.
Interesting.
Austrian mountaineer Karl Prusik invented the Prusik knot from his laces to get up a mountain.
Wow.
I mean,
I didn't know that.
In an Austrian mountaineering manual in 1931.
Yeah. That was a genuine piece of terror. The fact that he could have been taken off of that really high monastery at the side of that cliff. And I can think of one other thing which had a real sort of sense of terror was when Bond and Milena are in the two-man submarine, and then that henchman coming after him. You could hear the heavy breathing. Yeah. I mean, there wasn't any kind of villains that were particularly scary or nasty, but that was a particularly terrifying scene, as well as that guy who was going to take him off of the cliff. But apart from that, there wasn't anything else that really had any kind of real sort of sense of danger.
I mean, the skiing
got-
was pretty dangerous, wasn't it? Do you think?
Yeah, it was very dangerous. They got Rick Sylvester back for this sequence, who did the ski jump in The Spy Who Loved Me. So yeah, so he
I mean, that
was again
fall was amazing. I thought.
Yeah.
A genuinely dangerous fall, which looked really well carried out on film. I thought.
Yeah, shot in one take as well.
Wow.
I mean, it would have to be, right? He wouldn't want to keep doing it. Because Rick Sylvester said that it was against his nature because as a climber, all of the instincts you're taught are to hang on. So letting go was just completely against his instincts. So yeah, but thank God 007 health and safety standards were just enough to keep the poor guy alive and from getting seriously injured. So outfits, he was a bit more sort of Barber Bond in this, wasn't he? At the beginning, he had a couple of cool suits, the grey and the charcoal. Yeah. But after that, it was then very much sort of smoking a pipe, after you've been shooting partridges or whatever it is that rich white people do in the countryside here. But it was very, very, sweaters and gilet kind of territory for the rest of the film. So sartorially, there wasn't really much to shout about, was there?
Yeah, that sort of grey climbing jumper, which reminded me a little bit of Daniel Craig's military jumper he wears. And there was that suit he was given by Topol, wasn't it? A blue sort of polo neck zip-up thing, which kind of looked kind of functional wear, almost Bond athleisure wear he was wearing that, I think. I think apart from the grey suit, there was nothing much to write home about in this film.
It's not even the dinner jacket was particularly iconic. Yeah. I mean, he wore a dinner jacket, in the casino, and that wasn't particularly striking.
Yeah. There you go. That's the thing. They pared this film back so much. We haven't really got that much to sort of talk about.
Well, we're an hour and a quarter in. I think we're doing quite well, Bobby, to be fair.
Well, that's because we spent more time talking about old 80s shows like Chimpanzee Baby and whatever else you were talking about earlier. What was it called? I'm going to look it up now.
Firstborn.
Firstborn. I swear to God, I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, I remember that.
Well, shall we move on to our ratings then, Bobby?
Yeah, let's do that. So let's start with Alex. Haven't heard much of Alex today.
I'm going to give it a 6. It
Pretty
had
high.
everything correct on paper, but it just didn't do it for me.
Yeah, that's nice and short and sweet. Phil.
I'm also going to give it a 6. I'll say why. I kind of have fond memories of the car, and every time I watch it, and I've seen it a few times, I am reminded about the thought that my dad put into, a gift for me for my time in hospital. I actually did think that the guy who paid off Gonzalez, the guy with the octagon glasses, was rather iconic. And even though he wasn't the main bad guy, he was the one that sticks out in terms of henchman. So I have memories of it from a child when I watched it. So maybe I romanced about it a little bit more. But there were a lot of things about this film that were very, very poor. So above, I'd say 6 is where I want to rate it. It's not the worst, but it's certainly not the best.
What's so if you think that, right, so pretend, Phil, that there are no other Bond films that you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Right, we're in 1981 right now.
Yep.
You've only ever seen the ones that came before this. Of the ones that came before this, what are worse for you? Moonraker,
Diamonds
obviously.
Are Forever. Diamonds Are
Forever.
Yeah,
okay, interesting.
that was worse. Moonraker was worse as well.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. John.
Well, the last thing I do when I finish watching the film is I think of my score for your podcast. So I sat down last night and thought it felt like a 7, and then my other half commented on how disgusting she found the poster for the film, which caused a lot of a ruckus at the time because it was seen as too much buttock. And in
Can I
fact,
just mention? Can I just mention
Yeah.
they had the model turn the bikini bottoms around because when
Show
they did the
more.
original shoot, there wasn't enough buttocks showing. It wasn't risque enough, so they had her turn the bottoms round back to front, and then they shot it so that they saw more.
So the poster shows the hindquarters of what's supposedly meant to be Melina, although it was a different actress. It was a different model that took the photograph, holding a crossbow, and the angle of the camera is sort of low angle, so you can see through her legs and her butt to Bond in his kind of iconic gun barrel pose. And my wife was not happy about that at all. And in fact, if you go onto specialist websites to try and find a copy of the original posters, you can get a copy of the poster where some countries that didn't like that at all and banned that image, they actually airbrushed in like shorts over her butt and her legs. And those posters, those rare posters which show her not wearing sort of high level panties but shorts, they're worth a bomb now because they're so rare. Anyway, back to my rating. So it loses a point for that, for upsetting my wife. But so down to 6, but I'm going to hold it at 6 because it has Topol and it has Sheena Easton, and because it reminded me very much of my. You're right there, Phil. It reminded me very much of my 4 days in the 80s at ski resorts with our all-in-one ski suits. It gave me some fond memories of my dad teaching me to ski. Because I thought my dad was James Bond on the slopes at the time, and I have good memories of that. So it 6.
Oh, I wish I'd asked you to go last because that was such a nice one to have ended it on, but I didn't. And I'm not going to be bothered to splice this up and edit it in a different way.
What was your rating, Bobby?
So what I did is, you remember I gave Diamonds Are Forever a 6, and it was, as of 2 seconds ago, my worst one to date. So what I've done is I've notched Diamonds Are Forever up to a 6.5 so that I could then give this a 6 and put this at the bottom. So, and you know, I didn't want to rate it lower than that because I've got a lot of respect for all the work that went into it. You know, it was John Glenn's first director's job. And I thought for a first timer in the big chair, he did a pretty good job. I mean, he's always been known for his quite tight editing as well. They were obviously on a slightly smaller budget. I mean, it was still quite a big budget though, 28 million. I thought the stunt work in this film was really good again. And, you know, obviously I know from digging through the archives and so on, just the risks and the amount of work that goes into the whole team for putting those action sequences together. But I'll always go on my levels of enjoyment, and, you know, John, Alex, and the rest of the team on Play Pause Turn, we always talk about whether we reach for our phones and get distracted when we're watching something. And I just couldn't stay engaged with this. In fact, we actually stopped watching it about 60 minutes in because we realized the Happy Valley finale was on. And so we turned that off to watch Happy Valley. And then once Happy Valley finished, we then went back to this. And then we're still 15 minutes to go, and we decided to go to bed. And then we watched the last 15 minutes just before I came on here. So that goes to show that of all the ones that we've watched so far, that has to be the worst one for me, just because it didn't hold my attention and I didn't find it entertaining. There was a lot that sort of grated with me, from the soundtrack to the bookends at the beginning and the end. I just think it could have done without those, and then it would have been a nice contained spy caper. But it was just spoilt by those things. And then there was the BB stuff that was a bit sort of dodge. So, yeah. So it's a 6 from me, which puts it below Diamonds Are Forever. And because Diamonds Are Forever had its problems, we've discussed that. But when I look back on it, I can still look back on it and remember a lot of it. And I was still entertained by Diamonds Are Forever on the level. Whereas this, it's just a kind of throwaway. I wouldn't really care if I didn't see it again. I probably am going to watch it again to maybe try and give it a fair crack. But yeah, it's a 6 from me. So there we go.
I know you said about, you know, films that have wanted to have an appreciation because a lot of work went into it. lots more work went into Waterworld by Kevin Costner, and no one saw that or cared. So I wouldn't worry too much about that.
I liked Waterworld.
Alex has seen it.
I like
That was a one
bad
ticket.
films.
Terrible.
Sorry.
So yeah, there we go. I think the other thing as well is, apart from Phil, that we'd come off the absolute high that was Moonraker, because we went into that sort of flat and were pleasantly surprised. And this has been like being at the top of the roller coaster and then suddenly being at the bottom, without the fun in between. So
I want to pick up on something you said at the beginning of the. I want to pick up on something you said at the beginning of the podcast. You said 81 wasn't kind of memorable for terms of film. Raiders of the Lost Ark came out in 1981.
Raiders of the Lost Ark accepted, but you had other films like, Raiders of the Lost Ark was done on a budget, okay, because the studio didn't want to put loads and loads of money into something that they didn't understand. Chariots of Fire, low budget. Go on, give me another one.
Can I Escape from New York? The Evil Dead?
Escape from New York.
Low budget.
Cannonball Run.
Low budget.
Film. Clash of the Titans.
That wasn't low budget. That wasn't low budget. Cannonball Run wasn't low budget.
Scanners. What a great film Scanners
There were better films than this, though.
An American
They
Werewolf
were better
in London.
films, that's
Arthur.
right.
American Werewolf in London. I think
Low
the Amateur
budget.
2, The Possession, came out that year.
Yep.
There were no
Halloween
films.
2. Not great
There
film.
were no films where
Sean
they spent the
Connery's
sort of money
Outland.
that they spent on films like Alien
But that's a film.
in the couple years before. Alien, Moonraker, etc. All these films with massive $45 million budgets. There wasn't really any of that in 1981. Right? Because the studios were watching the pennies.
Hold on. Gregory's Girl came out in 81.
Oh my God, yeah. Sorry, how could I forget that? I mean, the effects, the special effects, and all the the Foley artists and the VFX and so on that went into that film, that $100 million genre-breaking blockbuster of a movie. Oh my God, where did they film that? On Hampstead Heath or somewhere?
Scotland.
I've never seen it.
Scotland.
I've never seen it, have I?
No.
Probably be more exciting than this was.
Bill Forsyth.
Gregory's Girl's an excellent
film.
Anyway, who's looking forward to Octopussy?
Oh, I am. We're going to have so much fun.
I've not seen it. I'm looking forward to it.
Octopussy is going to be a hoot. I don't remember it as I remember. I remember reasonable amounts of it, like the circus clown, the guy in a turban, a train, India, lots of women in lycra, like shiny lycra.
I might go and watch it now.
Hot air balloons. That's about it, really. So I imagine there's going to be a lot to talk about. More than anything, I love hanging out with you guys when we do these episodes. So whatever my thoughts on this film, it's been so great to see you all and also to hang out with you all at home. Thank you all so much for joining us. As I say every single time, we genuinely do love making these Bond-themed episodes, and we love getting your feedback after every single one. Tailoring Talk is on Instagram at Tailoring Talk Podcast, and you can go there, follow us to get updates on new episodes. John, Alex, and I, if you've not had enough of us, which would be a surprise, you can also find us at Play Pause Turn. That's Play Pause Turn, available wherever you like to get your shows, and we talk about pop culture and movies. We're going to be reviewing Ant-Man pretty soon. Quantumania. Got my ticket for next Friday. I'm going to be sat there at 10 in the morning on my own, which, to be honest, is the way I like to go to the cinema. Carolina will find out about this in 2024. So yeah, this podcast also serves as evidence, which might be required in future murder cases. If you want to support the show, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Roberto Revilla. You can also help us out by reviewing us and giving a rating if your podcast listening vessel allows it. We will be back next month to review Octopussy. Meantime, take care, and I'll see you on the next episode of Tailoring Talk. Bye-bye. They all said bye-bye, but they're waving just to
Oh,
F with me.
Bye.
Bye. This is audio, guys. Bye-bye.